This is Arturia's new expanded 37 key version of the Minilab 3. It is a compact MIDI keyboard that provides seamless integration with Arturia's Analog Labs plugin suite, as well as a streamlined hands-on workflow for your DAW, all in a portable package that fits in your backpack and won't break the bank. In this video, I want to show you what it is, what it does, what it gets right over its predecessor, as well as a few things that it still manages to get wrong. Now before we start, although Arturia has been an amazing supporter of this channel and sent me Minilab 37 for review at no cost, they are not paying me to make this video, nor do they get to see this video before you do. If you're already subscribed, huge welcome back, my friend. If this is your first time here, hi, welcome to the Midlight Synthesis. Let's get started. So let's first take a look at the hardware side of things. The Minilab 37 comes equipped with touch-sensitive mod and pitch bend strips, shift, hold, octave up, and down buttons, a screen with a clickable encoder, 8 endless encoders, 4 faders, and 8 velocity-sensitive RGB multifunctional pads that are stacked in true rows instead of in a straight line like in its predecessor. Now that might seem like only an aesthetic change, but it actually solves one of the previous model's biggest issues when controlling a DAW, but I'll show you that in a second. The keypad itself is velocity-sensitive, but there's no aftertouch, and the keys themselves are of the slim type that are commonly found in this sort of small MIDI keyboard. In the back, we have a USB-C port to hook up to a computer or a power source, a 5-pin MIDI out port, and a pedal input. Personally, I do most of my music outside of the DAW, so I gotta say I really appreciate having a dedicated MIDI output so I can use this as an independent controller for other hardware synths, or to have it act as a MIDI bridge between my DAW and older gear that doesn't support MIDI USB like my Octatrack. So the key selling point of the Minilab was just how great the DAW integration was, and that still remains true here. With the main encoder in Ableton, I can scroll through the different scenes. And if I press shift, I can go through the different tracks. Now, if I press down on the encoder while holding shift, I can arm or I can disarm the track. On each track, the 4 faders are always pre-assigned to volume, sends, and panning, which means you can actually develop some muscle memory here. So extra points to Arturia for not going the typical route of having these be the volume for the 4 tracks, for example. The pads can act as transport buttons, so you can press shift and have stop, play, record. You can tap tempo, which can be useful if you don't want to, do it with the mouse. And you can also switch programs. So I can either be in DAW control or in Arturia's Analog Labs, so everything is pre-routed, which I'll show you a bit later. You can also activate the loop, an arpeggiator, and a chord mode. The 2 rows of pads can function as clip launchers, or they can actually be used to finger drum, and they are velocity sensitive. Now, this is the Minilab's greatest weakness in my opinion. If you want to lay down a basic drum pattern, yeah, sure, they'll do fine, but the sensitivity isn't very high. So if you want to do a very nuanced finger drumming performance and are used to something like an MPC or even Ableton Push, this won't be able to replace that. Let me show you. If I finger drum very slightly, see, the pad won't pick up that signal. I have to be a bit more determined if I want it to register. See, it will certainly do in a pinch, but it wouldn't be my go-to drum pad. So even if this won't dethrone any MPCs in the finger drumming department, the fact that they are now stacked in 2 rows instead of 1 is very significant in terms of workflow, and I'll explain why. On the original Minilab, you could launch up to 8 individual clips, but you had no way of viewing the row above or below your active clips, which is not ideal if you're trying to launch clips live or recording them into the arranger. However, now that we have these 2 rows on top of each other, you can now launch clips above or below the active row, as well as stop them. Sure, I can't see as many horizontal clips as I used to, but the trade-off is absolutely worth it in terms of workflow and performance. One thing I find really cool about the Minilab is how fast you can switch between modes. So right now, I'm in DAW controller mode, but I have Analog Labs set up over here, and I can just program the synth without having to go into Analog itself. And then I go back into the DAW. I don't really need to bring up the plugin on my screen. I can just tweak it directly on the Minilab, since the central screen on the Minilab is telling me what I'm tweaking and it's already assigned. So I can treat this like a hardware synth. Finally, something that I really like about this controller in arranger view is that the central encoder allows you to scrub through the timeline while you're playing, much like I do with my MPC, which is something that I really like when I'm editing. Let me show you. Especially when you're trying to find that one MIDI note that's off. That really comes in handy. As for using this paired up with Arturia's own Analog Labs, as you might expect, it works flawlessly. I reviewed other of Arturia's keylabs before, and I think that this idea they've had of making hardware mirror the software is just genius. So just to recap, all the knobs and faders are already assigned to the corresponding controls on the screen, so this essentially becomes a sort of hybrid virtual hardware synth. The central screen shows you what you're tweaking, and the central encoder allows you to scroll through the presets. It's plug and play at its finest, and if you already own analog labs and either don't have enough room for one of the larger keylabs or need the mobility, I think the 37 is the sweet spot for portable keys. The Minilab 37 can also be used by itself as a MIDI keyboard for hardware synths. Using Arturia's MIDI Control Center, you can build your own templates and assign CCs to control your various hardware synths with Minilab 37's knobs and faders, further expanding the usefulness of this scrappy little controller. And here I'm powering it via USB to control the third wave 8M. You still get access to the arpeggiator and the chord mode, but if you're looking for a more comprehensive standalone MIDI keyboard, Arturia's own KeyStep 37 might be a much better fit. Still, it's nice to know that this has MIDI out just in case the need arises. I think the Minilab 37 is a great option for music makers that want the mobility of the Minilab 3, but feel that 2 octaves might be too restrictive to really let loose with their musical ideas. Also, I know that I sound like a broken record at this point, but having the 2 pads stacked in 2 rows really makes a big difference when you're working with clips in Ableton. If you make most of your music in the box and you don't need the standalone bells and whistles of the KeyStep 37, definitely give the Minilab 37 a gander. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have a great week. I will see you next time.